everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan. And for those of you who haven't gotten to see me in ages, hi, I'm back. I took some time off because I was supposed to move. It's a whole mess. We're just not going to talk about that. But I am back at least for the foreseeable rest of this year. And I am also here with the first guest of this year. And that is the beautiful, the wonderful, and the amazing, knowledgeable Judika Illes. If you've listened to the show, you've heard her voice many a time. And we are so happy to have her back. And we are here talking about her brand new book. And since we are on camera, I actually get to show it to you. And so this is, which is a compendium. I can't English today. And that is her beautiful new book. I love the cover. It's fascinating. It's wonderful. It was a fantastic read. And we're going to talk all about it. So, Judika, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, how have you been? How is life? How's everything been going? I don't think I talked to you since like 2023. It's been a hot minute.
It's been yeah, wow, uh, it is what it is. What can I say? It is, what is that curse? May you live in interesting times, and here we are. But,
That is very true. Yes.
all things considered, I am good.
I'm glad that you are good. I'm glad that you are
Yeah.
doing very well. I'm glad you have a new book out. The book was
Yeah, me
fascinating.
too.
It was such a wonderful read, and it was such an interesting thing that I was not expecting it to be, which is usually what happens with your books. I usually get this whole idea. I'm like, yeah, I know what her books are going to be like. No, you surprise me every time. I should just be used to the surprise at this point, but I'm not.
Well, somebody described the book to me as a love song to witches, and that's really true.
Yes.
I mean, I have a bigger book. I have an encyclopedia of witches, which maybe, that's a 800-page book with a lot of history and facts. But this is really a celebration of witches. There's a lot of witches here that I love, and I wanted to share that love with readers.
Well, that kind of brings me to my first question is where did the inspiration come from? I mean, obviously you have your big encyclopedia book, which is a beautiful reference
Well,
book.
where did the encyclopedia? Well, this book has had a complicated history.
Mhm.
This book, so, I mean, for people who don't know me, I am most famous for a book called Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, which is a big 1,000-page spell book. And then after that, I wrote for my story, I wrote two more really big books. Another, Encyclopedia of Witchcraft is about 800 pages. Encyclopedia of Spirits is about 1,000 pages.
Mhm.
And, you know, Encyclopedia of Spirits, which is probably my best-selling book now, wasn't selling fast enough when it was first published, and the publisher declined to do another encyclopedia. And Wiser Books asked me, they had a series called the Wiser Field Guide series. Raymond Buckland wrote the first book.
Mhm.
There's a Field Guide to Ghosts, which is a great book. They're field guides. They're
Yeah.
they're little books. And they asked me if I wanted to do one, and I said sure. And it was fun. And most of my books, I'm glad I wrote them, but they weren't fun to write. But this was a little book. I mean, it's not as little as I thought it was, but compared to a 1,000-page book, it's like a normal book. And so it's like a mini encyclopedia of witches. And I wrote the Wiser Field Guide to Witches, which you can know, which is now, you'll have to go on eBay and find it as a collector's item
Yes.
now.
I
But
have a copy. It's in my hallway.
hold on to it. Do not lend that book out because they're not making new copies of that
Oh,
one. And
that's
I love the
interesting.
cover.
Okay.
There was a fun cover of that one. And, eventually the publisher of the encyclopedias, you know, they changed their mind and they asked me if I had, and that's how I wrote Mystic Saints and Sages, because they came back and asked me for another encyclopedia. But this book really, the field guide series ended pretty shortly after,
Mhm.
and it wasn't well known. And years later, I was asked if I wanted to revise it just as a standalone book, and it became Which is a Compendium. It's not the same book. Um, it was updated. It is bigger than it was.
Mhm.
I was able to, I've never found a place for my art witches. People like Rosalie Norton and Valerie Myers and Lenora Carrington and I Moyna Mathers, I was able to get them in this book, and it just it, there were things in Field Guide to Witches that I wasn't happy with that I had been asked to write, but I, you know, didn't really want it in my book. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is the book as it should be. And I'm so glad that, and I'm not, a lot of people are ambivalent about witchcraft. I am not ambivalent about witchcraft. People sometimes will call you a witch like it's a bad thing. I have never felt like that,
No.
ever. I was 3 years old. Witches are something to aspire to be, not to, oh no, 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 I'm not a witch. You wish you were a witch. So no.
The Witches are the cool kids club.
Yeah, yeah, and I wanted to express that.
You did such a beautiful job. And obviously, because there's so many historical figures that are associated with witchcraft and occultism and spiritualism, how did you narrow it down? How did you pick and choose who was going to make it into the book and who wasn't?
It's hard because I can tell you, I'm sorry. I say my art witches, but I didn't have every book. It's a finite space. You only have room for a certain amount of words,
Hmm.
especially with a print book. In theory, with a digital book, you could have a 5 million word manuscript, but you can't with a printed book. And I mean, to this day, I wish I had had room for Remedios Varo, who was Lenora Carrington's friend and a sorceress. And maybe in another book. I'd love to do an art book
That would be beautiful.
with the paintings of witches and
Hmm.
also paintings that witches created. How did I do it? You know, in some cases it's because I felt bad that I wasn't able to get them into earlier books. Like I have in my head a list. It's like, what did I not do last time? I've always felt bad. So Encyclopedia of Witchcraft, which is the book that I wrote after Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells,
Hmm.
was originally also over 1,000 pages. And at the very last minute, the book was literally about to be printed. The publisher got a great deal on printing if it was like 300 pages less. And so, the bean
Oh.
counter said, "Oh, it's going to be 300, pages less." And I sat down with the production director who was amazing. It's just amazing. He was in London and I was, in America. And this is before Zoom. We were
Hmm.
over the phone for hours, cutting, tweezing sentences out of it, chunks out of it. And one of the entries that was removed was one for Rosalie Norton, who, for people who don't know, she's an artist. She was an artist, she's no longer with us. Rosalie Norton was known as the Witch of King's Cross,
Hmm.
which was sort of the Times Square area of Sydney, Australia. She had a very sad life. She really was a free thinker. She's a wonderful artist. And it was a very conservative time in Australia, and her work was censored, and she was really pursued by the press, and she was very openly a witch. And they didn't burn her, but they made her life very hard. And I felt bad that she didn't make it into that book. And so the first thing I wrote when I wrote this book was I had an entry for Rosalind Norton.
Hmm.
And the thing, my sister is an artist. I grew up with artists, visual artists. And I love visual art, and I appreciate magical paintings. And you can cast a spell with the painting, or, with needlecrafts, with embroidery, with
Of course.
all sorts of, I mean, you can cast a spell with anything. But it was very frustrating for me when I wrote 5,000 spells because I can teach you how to do a candle spell. And I can teach you, how to do a incantation or make a mojo bag, but I cannot teach you how to cast a spell with a painting.
Hmm.
That is very personal, and you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. That
Right.
You have to figure that out for yourself. And so I've never had a place, Valley Myers, who was also originally from Australia, but who I saw once in New York City when she was in New York City. She made this incredible impression on me. And I never had a place in my books for these artists these witch artists that people should know about and who are just wonderful and powerful. And their work gives me so much pleasure. And,
Hmm.
I'm really in awe of a lot of their work. And so this was really an opportunity. Who knows? You never know how many books you're going to write.
Of
Will
course.
you ever have will you ever have another chance to do this? So
Right.
so I jumped on it.
Well, it was beautiful, and I don't know how you were able to narrow it down into so many amazing voices. I mean, obviously there was at least one person that was living, and that was, Christopher Pinzak, and there's also so many others that are from all parts of history that I didn't
Right.
even know. And so it was like, wow, like you wouldn't even realize how many people
Oh,
were influential to
I'll tell
basically
you
the
how I
history
did
of it.
that. I mean, it's very hard because you could do a witch's greatest hits and do,
Of
these are
course.
my favorite authors, or this is somebody like let me recommend their books,
Hmm.
but there isn't that much page space. So I picked people who I felt that at the time that I was writing had influenced the history and the nature of witchcraft. So somebody like Christopher Penzak, who is my friend and who I've known for, oh, gosh, 20 years. But I think Christopher, with the Temple of Witchcraft and
Hmm.
his books, has really impacted the way witchcraft is practiced and perceived. So I don't have a lot of living people in the book,
Hmm.
but but I mean that was the decision rather than, oh, this is my favorite author, or
Right, of course, because, he has done so much influential work in the
yeah,
world of witchcraft, at least the modern world.
yeah,
And so, yeah, he was definitely, he earned his stripes to be there.
exactly, exactly. I mean, I had to because I started some others and then I had to, there's always that you only have so much room in any given book. And even though this is bigger and expanded and
Hmm.
changed from the earlier book, it's not a 1,000-page book,
Right.
which is what I wanted. I wanted a book that people could, I don't know, stick in your backpack, stick in your purse, in your luggage if you're traveling. You don't have to read it consecutively. You can just flip it open and start reading and just enjoy, or find something interesting
Hmm.
and enjoy yourself with it. But that was I would start to write something and I would ask, have they how much have they changed the history of witchcraft? How much have they impacted? And that was, because you have to have a criteria. And so that was mine.
I think that that's a really beautiful thing, which kind of leads me into kind of my next question is for audience members who are new to the craft, why is it important for people to remember where the craft has come from, the people that made it? Obviously you and I know the answer, but for them,
Oh, well, I mean, because when we stand on the shoulders of those who came before
of
us,
course, yeah.
and because we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and because I mean, this is my opinion. This is just, I I can't I'm not going to pull out like people sometimes want, you to footnote everything.
No.
So, in my opinion,
If you want the footnotes, go read the rest of Judika's book. She already did the footnotes for you. You just have to read the
it
books.
in my opinion, what we call witchcraft, and it goes by different names in other languages, but what we call witchcraft is, I think as early as human beings having consciousness. I think witchcraft goes back to, if you read anthropology books, they'll talk about, where did people originate, and often it's in Africa, although sometimes people will argue it's someplace else. And then they might, they start in one place and then they migrate throughout the world. And I think that witchcraft is what helps us migrate. Witchcraft is back then thousands of years ago. We think about ancient history and we're thinking 2,000 years, but human history goes back way before that, thousands and
Thousands
thousands.
and thousands, hundreds
You
of
know,
thousands
before
of
the
years.
cave, I mean, those cave paintings
Yes.
are so magical. So, our speaking of art witches, look at those cave paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important. And also because historically, at least since the fall of ancient Egypt, there are very few witch friendly societies.
Right.
And there's a lot of stereotyping of witches. Oh, the evil witch, oh, they did something terrible. Yeah. The reality is, witches have historically been the victims.
Mm-hmm.
We have been persecuted. We are people have felt aggression towards us more than from us.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to remember this history so that we're vigilant and it doesn't repeat itself. And so we know where we come from.
Yes. Oh,
And I
yes.
think in recent years we have, I mean, I homeschooled my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was always worried I was doing it wrong. Am
Of
I
course,
failing them?
because that's what all parents worry about.
Well, I don't know if all parents worry about that because I would ask their friends, like who were in all sorts of schools, from public schools to, some in very expensive private schools. What are you studying now? What are you studying now? And I'm just appalled at, we have really poor education.
Mm-hmm.
So I do try to provide as much clear and accurate information as I can
I mean,
because
that
it's important that we know this.
yes, it is important that we know this. And I can adamantly say that you are probably one of the foremost voices out there that will always provide clear and concise education to give what you need. And even if the records changed, I have seen you come out and say, hey, check this
Sure,
source now because this has been updated. We've learned new things.
right,
And, you know,
right. Well, we're always learning something new and
that's the whole point
getting
of
a different
witchcraft is knowledge
perspective.
and learning.
Yeah, my astrologer used to tell me to pay attention to when something like a mummy or an ancient statue or a ruin, something that has been lost to our knowledge for generations, all of a sudden appears
Hmm.
because it's trying to tell us something.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. So, of course, I have to ask out of all the witches you have featured in this book, who's your favorite and why?
Oh God, I don't know.
I
But
knew that was going to
I
be a
am
tough one.
that
I'm
like,
sorry.
no, it's okay. I mean, I can tell you, I don't have like people will ask me about goddesses, who's your favorite, or songs or movie, what's your favorite? And I'm like, personally, I'm a very faithful person,
Hmm.
romantically, but spiritually, creatively, I'm a promiscuous person. I like a lot of stuff. So that's very hard for me. There are some that are very dear to my heart. Valley Myers, Moina Mathers, they're very dear to my heart. The goddesses. I know I always love writing about goddesses.
Hmm.
Lilith and Hecate and Nephthys. And there's a Hawaiian goddess, Kapo, sorceress goddess. I love them. I haven't found a place to write about the volcano goddess Pele yet, but I have a lot of Pele art. I love Pele.
Why not just do
Um,
a whole book on Pele?
oh, because no one wants to be. Maybe I mean there are great books on Pele, so maybe one day. But when the Orishas, Ogun and Yemaya and Oshun, who have aspects of them that are witchcraft aspects, I love
Hmm.
them. Simbi, who is the snake magician from Haiti. I love him, and I
That was
am
one I didn't know. And I was really thankful you put that in there because I was like, I don't know. Why do I feel like I should know this, but I didn't.
he's
And it was
extremely
so
powerful.
cool to learn about it. So, I just loved it.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm grateful for the privilege of being able to write about these powers,
Hmm.
and I mean oh I don't know, there's really if I can't write about someone or something with respect,
Mhm.
I try not to write about them.
That's fair.
Well, it was a thing like in Mystic Saints and Sages, because, some of those saints were really awful people.
Yes.
And I couldn't I mean, what's the point of writing about them? Because it was a book. I am a very practical person. That was a practical book. It's got a lot of saints from different traditions,
Of
including
course.
pagan saints. Um, and I am writing it to help people find, a spiritual guardian who you can develop a loving relationship with and who will make your life better.
Mhm.
And there are some, I just wouldn't recommend them.
Of
I,
course.
I, so I didn't write about them. So I, I mean, this book is very much a celebration of witches. I, I love Bridget Bishop from
Mhm.
Salem. Bridget Bishop was the first woman executed in Salem. And although, as every book will tell you, most of the so called Salem witches were not actually witches,
Mhm.
there's always been some questions about Bridget. Um,
Yes.
and and she's become associated with witchcraft in a
Yes.
way that the other people who are entrapped in this tragedy have not been. When we talk about Rebecca Nurse,
Mhm.
it's a tragedy and we feel bad for her. And it's always emphasized that, although Bridget Bishop also, attended church regularly,
Yes.
as did Marie Laveau. I mean, it's people are complicated and
People are
spirituality is
complicated.
complicated. So I am very fond of Bridget Bishop. And I got to write about, and I and Anne Boleyn and Joan of Arc, and um there's just so many interesting people, interesting spirits, interesting practices.
Mhm.
I don't know why, you know, I I feel bad for people who don't want to be a witch. You don't know what you're missing.
And the interesting thing about witchcraft too is, witchcraft gets a bad name. It really does because mainly humanity fears what they don't understand, and that
Oh,
makes
I
it.
don't think so. I don't think that's it. I don't think it's about not understanding.
Oh, really?
I think
Okay.
no, because we don't understand plenty. I don't, I don't understand how electricity works, but I'm not afraid. I turn on the light.
That's fair.
I think I think the what do witches have in common in general? It is a quest for knowledge and for autonomy and for independence. I Witches, people who become witches don't like to be told what to do. They don't want to be told what to read. They don't want to be told what to think. They want to they want to live in an autonomous, independent fashion.
Mhm.
And even I am, I stop at stop signs. I am a very law abiding person. I I so it's not about not being law abiding, but it is about not necessarily being obedient. It's no surprise that a
Mhm.
creature like a cat is so closely associated with
Because
witchcraft.
cats don't listen at all.
Cat, no, cats. I mean, that cat may make you really happy and do everything you wanted to do. And oh, it's a good cat. It's not, but it's a choice.
Mhm.
Cats don't, they're not obedient. They're, they do it because they choose to do it. And I think that authority from religious authorities, spiritual authorities, secular authorities, I think witchcraft is always a thorn in their side, especially in places where women are expected to be very submissive.
Mhm.
Um, because you know some people just aren't. It's
Some people are just loud and boisterous and have opinions.
or they're quiet and they're just watching, and that makes people nervous too.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it has issues to do with authority and also knowledge. The word witch derives from an Anglo-Saxon word indicating wisdom, and that is true in other languages, the words they use for witch as well. And when I said earlier that I think that the roots of witchcraft are in those earliest migrations of human beings,
Mm-hmm.
it's because imagine you are going someplace. It's like going to Mars. It's not like going to someplace where you can read a guidebook, but all of a sudden you found yourself in a new place. For whatever reason, you had to leave the familiar. You've got a group of people, and you may as well be on Jupiter. You don't know anything.
Right.
You don't know what are the land spirits like. How do you make friends with the land spirits? What are the plants like? Are there minerals in the earth? What are maybe the taboos? What shouldn't we do here because it will be dangerous for us? Which mushrooms can we eat? I mean,
That's a big
and
one.
anthropologists will sometimes say it's trial and error. And just imagine, oh yeah, they just kept eating mushrooms until they figured out which ones didn't kill you. But I, I if you read reports of shamans, even modern shamans in the Amazon, they talk about the plants singing to them.
Mm-hmm.
The plants communicate to them. The earth communicates. Animals communicate with them. And they don't communicate with everyone. Or maybe everyone doesn't know how to do it.
Right.
But witches are the ones who want to know how and learn how. And no one likes someone who knows it. It makes people nervous when other people know more than you do. And I think that because when we talk about witches as people who know things, it's not just that we maybe do math better, it's that we know things that are hard to know
Yes.
or hard to prove or that other people just, and in the early days where, a lot of magic practitioners, a lot of magic and witchcraft is rooted in iron working professions.
Mm-hmm.
And those were family secrets. How do you how do you get minerals, iron, gemstones? How do you get it out of earth without the earth's cooperation? You have to think magically, you have to
Mm-hmm.
think spiritually. And I really resent that magical thinking has become the term magical thinking has become it's something that people criticize other people. Oh, they're thinking magically. Well, thinking magically is good.
Yeah.
They're not actually thinking magically. If you're really thinking magically, your life will be enhanced.
That's amazing. And it's true though, like if you really think about it though, because the the imagination, all of these things, those are all tied into magic. So, and even without them, I would say that imagination is tied to the soul. So without, being connected to that, it's kind of like you're almost disconnected and you don't get to have as much of a rich life, I don't think. So, at least that's my opinion.
Yeah,
But, you know,
yeah.
so we're almost out of time, but I do have a couple more questions for you. Obviously you have written this book and it has all of these beautiful features of the past. What do you think is going to be next for witchcraft in the future?
I Anything that exists can be used in a spell. And I see people casting spells with emojis
Mhm.
and all kinds of technology. And I think that we will continue to do that. The more as things enter, I mean, people are going to scream at me, but I mean, I see people trying to use AI magically,
Mhm.
um, because whatever is out there can potentially become a tool of
Yes.
witchcraft. And I think that the internet and social media has been both a blessing and a curse. But one of the blessings is that it has enabled magical practitioners from all over the world to be in touch with each other and communicate with each other and share.
Yes.
And I think, I come from New York City, And there was sort of a New York school of witchcraft when I was growing up that was kind of a hybrid of various schools of magic based on the populations of New York at that time. We don't talk enough about the Puerto Rican influence
Mhm.
on witchcraft, but there was a huge, 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 it's very important in the New York City area. And I think that the internet allows this to be sort of exponentially enhanced.
Mhm.
We can, you know, I communicating with someone in, I communicate with people in the UK all the time now.
Mhm.
It's not, you know, I'm old enough to remember when you were afraid to like make a phone call because it was so
Oh my
expensive.
gosh, yes.
Right? You had to remember like you could only call after a certain hour to get a better rate.
Right.
And now, you just Zoom or WhatsApp and it's great. And I think that the sharing, and I think we need to be concerned about each other. If witches are being persecuted in one area, even if it's not in our backyard, we should pay attention.
Mhm.
Not pretend we don't know about it. But so I mean, I think that we will adapt and evolve to I mean, what do witches do? They heal. They provide service to others.
Mhm.
They explore mysteries. And I think we will just keep doing that more and more and more.
I think also witches also push the boundaries of society a little bit.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
now I mean, we are a very technological society, but the more
Right.
technological societies become, you know, I think that we're really going to start seeing a kind of push the boundaries of blending old world with new world.
True.
And it's going to be really fascinating to see what comes out of that in the future, I think. So,
I think
could be
also
good, could be
witches.
bad, but I'm still fascinated regardless.
I'd also like to think that, you asked me before, why am I writing about these things from the past? Because I think that it's very easy to lose sight. I,
Hmm.
I mean, I write about this in one of my earlier books. Oh, where is it? I'm sitting here surrounded by books. But my book,
Same. I
Pure
have
Magic.
stacks of books.
Well, my book, Pure Magic, which is a course in spell casting.
Hmm.
And, if you want to know how. Um, and one of the things I write about is it's very easy to lose track of all the magical things that surround us, like salt.
Hmm.
Because, you go to a fast food place and you drive through the drive-through and you get home and there's like 20,000 salt packets on the bottom of your bag. And so, or pepper, I mean, it looks like it's not valuable because it's just thrown in. But salt is one of the most magical ingredients there is, period. You can do so much important stuff with salt. And also pepper, salt, pepper, honey,
Hmm.
these things that are not necessarily valued in our society. Frankincense, which used to be, it was like buying a luxury item at one time.
Hmm.
And now, you can go to an essential oil store and get, it's not the least expensive essential oil, but it's not a break the bank essential oil.
Right.
And so it's easy to look at it and not recognize the power that is so accessible to us now.
Hmm.
And I think the magical practitioners and witches are here to remind people of that. Y- You know, Pay attention. You're in a room. What color are the walls? Are you are you comfortable? Are you in your power?
Hmm.
Do you feel like you are in your power or do you feel diminished? And I mean, you might be diminished by something totally different. I mean, it might be
Of
the
course.
people you're surrounded by, your situations, but it's also maybe you need to change. I mean, it is a little, feng shui. It's now like it's the real estate section of the paper,
Mhm.
but it's a magical art.
Mhm.
And, maybe if you just move something around and you analyze it, what is making you unhappy? That you can control yourself. And that's an important lesson.
Yes. That is a very important lesson.
As opposed to you can't, all the tech, you can't afford this, you can't afford that.
Mhm.
Do you have the most recent phone? Will people think, you have to impress people and you need the newest this, the newest that? But a lot of really powerful things are, probably in your kitchen cupboards right now,
Mhm.
gathering dust.
There's so many different avenues and so many different things that we could explore, and obviously we could sit here and talk about it for days
Oh yeah,
because there's so
exactly.
much to explore. So I'd say everybody who's listening, especially if you're new to this, figure out kind of, different ways of connecting that aren't just, obviously sitting at an altar, lighting a candle, doing the work out of the spell books is great. But there's also a lot of wonderful ways to connect with something that aren't doing those things. Like maybe you like to crochet, or maybe you like to play video games,
Right,
or maybe you like
right.
to cook, or maybe you like to take walks in nature and hug trees. I mean, the list goes
Maybe you
on
want
and
to
on and
dream.
on.
I mean, maybe you want to stay in bed,
Yeah.
and everybody's telling you you're lazy, but dreaming is so important
Mm-hmm.
and so magical. So,
So much amazing stuff. So, Judika, what is next on your docket for the future? What do you got planned that you
oh,
can maybe
well,
tease or
I,
talk about, or,
ah,
conferences, all those things?
decks, decks,
Okay.
decks. I have now not just one, but two decks. I, I started to do a deck some years ago, actually before 5,000 spells for the publisher. It didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of me, but because the publisher changed their mind about
Of
doing that.
course.
And now, I mean, and it's been many years, but I have two decks coming out this year.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
a deck of protection spells that will be out in June, and
Okay.
an oracle spell deck that will be out in the fall. So
That's
that's
wonderful.
what I'm working on right now, and
Okay.
it's exciting. It's something new. So,
That is very cool. I look forward to seeing that. Who's the publisher for those?
Wiser Books is publishing my deck of protection spells,
Okay.
and if you go on Wiser's website, you can see it.
Okay.
And the other one, which will be out in the fall, and which is we're working on it now.
Mm-hmm.
Protection spells is protection spells. They're beautiful cards. They I love snakes,
Mm-hmm.
and and these are snakes,
Oh,
and
that's lovely.
I I never get snakes. I blessed to have amazing covers, but I never have snakes. And I saw the design for these cards, and I just fell in love with them.
That's wonderful.
And the other deck is related to the Encyclopedia of 5,000
Okay.
Spells. And so that one, I'm doing it with the staff at HarperCollins UK, but I believe that Wiser Books may be distributing it in the US.
Okay. That's cool. That is very cool.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
keep in contact with my folks at Wiser, and obviously they'll let me know when all that's coming out because I'm sure I'll probably get
I'll come back. We can talk about it.
You'll
It'll be
have to
fun.
come back and we're going to talk all
I'd
about
love
it.
to. Thank you, Pagan.
Always. So obviously you're on social media. Where can people go to find you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I do have a website, but you know,
Websites are
I am very
hard.
technical. It's a little, well, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm an author. I'm an editor. I'm a mom. I have a lot of hats, and that website will be up and running eventually.
That's
Um,
fair.
but I mean, I've got decks to work on.
Hmm.
Um, I am on Facebook. Um, I have an author page. You could just like it. You can send me an invite. I've got room on my personal pages. I'm on Instagram, and I am. It's still Twitter to me, but I'm there.
Okay. Well, as always, this is wonderful. Everyone who is listening, please go pick up a copy of Judika's book. It is a wonderful book to read. It is a book that you can sit down and absolutely dive full force into, or you can pick it up and read it as you need to. You can use it as a reference. It has so much amazing knowledge in it. Please go pick up a copy. It is wonderful. If you are someone who cannot afford a copy, go request one at your local library, because the libraries will purchase a copy if they don't already have one,
Yes,
and that helps the local library. It also helps you be able to read the book, and it just helps everybody. So make sure you do
yes,
that.
yes. And they're all available digitally. So the library, they have that digital service
Mm-hmm.
too. A lot of libraries don't realize that people want this kind of a book,
Yes.
but I work with very reputable publishers. So the librarians, even if they get a little nervous, that will reassure them.
Mm-hmm.
Go tell them you want the book and they will get it for you.
Yes. And even if you're like, hey, I would like a digital copy of this, there are digital services available. There are audiobook
Right.
services available.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm sure because it's a wiser book, it's probably an audio. I actually have not
There is an
looked.
audiobook.
Yes.
Yes.
So ask them for all of it. So ask them for the digital, ask them for the audiobook, because they all have those services available, and it's a great way to support your community as well. So make sure you're doing that. Judika, this has been wonderful as always. I can't wait for you to come back. I can't wait to hear about your decks. And everyone, make sure you are taking care of yourselves. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you all next time, because we are fully back and I have a lot of guests lined up for 2025 and 2026. So
Oh,
we're
it's
going to
hard
be
to know
here.
when we are, right?
Right. I cannot tell you the stack of books that is literally like, okay, here's my camera level. Y'all can see this. I am 2 books below my camera level. So,
Wow.
and I just have another stack behind me that is so tall because I just got a box in from Wiser today. So I have way more guests coming in the future. I'm excited about all of them. But yes, Judika, when your decks come out, we're going to have you back because we're going to talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, everyone, I'll talk to y'all later. Be kind to yourselves, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, everyone.